Ooh, this is exotic. Muscle Cat Media. Nice. Cultural.
It is Baseball Expats, or Expats today. Eric Ballnar and Spoon with you today. Andrew Reynolds, he's off doing baseball things in the baseball world. But welcome to our weekly show. If you are new here, we do 2 shows a week. One today, Tuesday in Australia, and it is our big one. And we also do a little one on Friday that Spoon sort of drives with some betting tips. More on that in a second. And then every fortnight, like we did yesterday, our Destiny Draft team as we find our groove here on Expats. Cool show, I think, today was the MLB trade deadline, so always lots to talk about, especially from a fan perspective. Spoon, you are jumping on and joining me literally minutes after the Diamondbacks, your Diamondbacks, beat the Padres in a huge series opener.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this right after that one ended because the vibe this morning for myself and Diamondbacks fans was not great. We'll talk more about the deadline in a minute, but to kind of stay put on a team that looks quite competitive and is just missing a couple of pieces felt like quite a negative mood. But credit to the D-backs, they came out, got the win over the Padres, who had every reason to be up and about with, the moves they made, basically rehauling their entire rotation. And yeah, look, this wildcard race is going to be crazy. I think the Phillies are right there, obviously, still. The Pirates won again today. They're in it. The Cardinals kind of signaled their intent by selling. The Nationals did something similar. I think we're looking at 4 teams for 2 spots, and the D-backs need to pick up all of these games against teams in that race because they basically count for 2.
Really big show today. I'm keen to chat to you in a second. So we're going to chat about our teams and what they did, your D-backs and my Toronto Blue Jays. They could not be more opposite in what they did. The Jays... Man, the Jays have a lot of layers to what they did, and the D-backs do not. So that will be an interesting conversation, but keen to talk about it. We're going to actually make a theme team. We'd like to do this on Expats. We've made theme teams of all kinds of things, whether it be names that are vowels or that end in vowels, names that are nouns, names that are from like World Cup theme teams, all kinds of stuff. You can go back and listen, but we're going to do a trade deadline theme. Spoon will have us some picks. We'll touch on some things in the international baseball world, but let's start with the deadline and let's start with your D-back, Spoon, because, okay, look at this. Last podcast, I used the example of the Carolina Hurricanes in the NHL, and I said that the Hurricanes, I loved what they did at the trade deadline in this year because they did almost nothing. They had a good vibe, good story, good team. They had an opportunity to take some big swings. They didn't. They added maybe one guy at the edges. He didn't really play in the playoffs at all. They stayed put and let the vibes go. And I said, I think the D-backs, last podcast, are a team that would be good maybe to stay put because they're not going to make a big swing and go for a big guy. If you could get a Scooble, of course you do that. But the D-backs have a good vibe going. They're sneaky hot. They're playing consistent ball. They're here not because of one big winning streak. They're here because they've built before and throughout the season. It feels like a really good group. And this is from me as an outsider looking in and just casually watching some baseball and D-backs this year. So I thought it would be good for the D-backs to do nothing. And they would be a great team just to let this thing ride and see how we go. Keen to hear the D-backs fan perspective because they didn't do much. They had Lars Nootbaar. That's it. But a good peripheral player.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, your point is spot on about kind of being happy where we're sitting right now. I think for me, the frustration lies in it being more of a systemic problem with the league where Gambo, who's kind of the insider for all things D-backs, did say 4 or 5 days ago, don't expect the D-backs to add anyone because if they take on almost any more salary at all, they go into the luxury tax. And for a small market team, who, to be fair to Ken Kendrick, the owner, a lot of fans had an issue with him for a long time. Up until 2023 when we made that World Series run. Since then, he's been top 15 in payroll every season since, which, it's probably as good as you can ask for from a D-backs point of view. To go into the luxury tax on a wildcard team is understandably not the right move. It frustrates me, though, because it kind of highlights more of the competitive imbalance between the teams that can afford to do that and the teams that can't. So I think whilst to one extent, to your point, there's a vibe of we're happy with what we've got right now. I think if there was no luxury tax or there was a salary cap and everyone was playing at a level playing field, the D-backs might have maneuvered a little differently. That said, they had Mike Hazen, the general manager, on the broadcast today. He was talking about how they were trying to get more guys, and almost every single team came back saying, we want Ryan Waldschmidt or Tommy Troy. And Mike Hazen said, we're not getting rid of our young players. So I think that's a clear sort of vote of confidence to your point around what we've got now. And it doesn't need to be accepting the fact that maybe there's a shortened or no season next year to mortgage the future for the right now. It's not like this team is, one superstar pitcher away from being World Series favorite. And you've got Ryan Waldschmidt up right now batting 280 and sort of improving right before our eyes at the age of 23. I can understand that the move of let's just sit with what we've got and trust in the reinforcements that may be coming. You've got guys like Soroka, Justin Martinez, maybe Corbin Burns, Jordan Lawler, all back within the next 3 to 4 weeks. If those guys come back and hit at the level they can, that effectively is our trade line acquisitions, which, look, I wanted the big names. I talked about Detmers, and Luis Garcia would have been great. I think he was gettable given what the Yankees gave up to get him, and he already had an impact today. There were some nice names floating around, but at the same time, we didn't have 5 or 6 or 7 holes to patch. We maybe had 1 or 2. And on that basis, to your point, let's just see how we go.
The timing's interesting, right? Because first off, the Diamondbacks from the outset, the division race was never the race they were in. It's the Dodgers division. They're the favorites. They should win the division, and they've had they've had 10 game leads or plus. Now it's 9, but they've been around that mark the whole season. But the timing's interesting because you play the Padres right at the trade deadline. That, for me, big win for the Diamondbacks today, man. Had you lost that game, you would have been tied. You would have done nothing. And then I talked about vibes. Well, what happens to the vibes if you lose that series to the Padres and the team did nothing to support around you? This kind of goes both ways, right? If you win this series versus the Padres, all of a sudden it galvanizes the group, and maybe it's the holy cow, we are good enough here. But if they lose this series, which they're playing right now, a 4-game set, it kind of feels like, maybe we should have done something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of, as I do, instantly went to the futures markets for make the playoffs as the deals were getting done today, and even looking at it right now. The teams I mentioned before, I think the Phillies, despite that little cold streak, adding Arise is such a key piece to that lineup. Like a guy that can get on base that often, best batting stats in the league, and then set it up for Schwarber and Harper and those heavy hitters. The Phillies are now, well, actually, I'll ask you, what do you think the Phillies are to make the playoffs?
Less than 2.
They're $1.13.
Yeah.
So the bookies have clearly gone, this is already a really good team. They've now gotten a little bit better. They've basically locked them in for one of those 2 spots I mentioned before. Then you've got the teams that I kind of put a line through. The Nationals are out to 41s. Forget about them. The Cardinals are out to 11s. I think that's going to continue to drift. And the Marlins are 650, which I think they've probably been ahead of schedule this year. They're not really a playoff team. So you've got one spot then for the D-backs, the Padres, and the Pirates. How would you be pricing those 3?
I would say, am I saying for the betting markets or what I think it should be?
Yeah, for the betting markets to make the playoffs.
I would say it would go Padres, then D-backs, then the Pirates or the Marlins. But I think based on what we've seen this year, the Diamondbacks, and they have more wins, the Diamondbacks should be number 1, but I don't think they will be.
Yeah, it's interesting. The D-backs are $1.97, so they got as short as $1.80 2 days ago, and then they haven't lost a game since then. But obviously not making a move today has had a little bit of weighting in that. The Padres are at $2.45, so you kind of, if the Phillies have got 2 hands or at least 1 hand on one of those spots, you're looking at pretty close to even money for 2 teams for that last slot. Then you've got the Pirates at $4.70. It's really interesting, man. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the idea of guys like Mason Miller getting traded in the event that the Padres were sellers. They clearly haven't been sellers. They got 2 front of rotation starting pitchers today in Myers and Robbie Ray. And now I think we're going to be, at least as a Diamondbacks fan, I'm going to be schedule watching for the next couple of months, not just for the D-backs, but also the Padres.
I think the Diamondbacks made the right call, man. I'll reiterate that again. Too far away from being one move wouldn't, to your point, wouldn't make them a contender more than of a contender of what they are, right? That would take upgrades across the board. I think maybe the best move is just let the collective human energy in that dugout try to go on a ride like they did in 2023. Good coaching,
Yeah,
good players on the team, and maybe this young group kind of gets galvanized. And sometimes ownership looking at those players and saying, this is our group. We don't need to add because I believe what we have here. Sometimes that's good enough, man.
Yeah, I think the only move I really would have liked to see, and we'll talk about your Blue Jays in a minute, but I love the way that the Jays went and got guys that weren't expiring rentals. I think the D-backs could have absolutely made a move like that for a guy like Reed Detmers, who has 2 years beyond this year, and then you're kind of straddling that line between we're not exactly pushing our chips in and mortgaging the future for right now. This guy can help us be better right now, but also help us, in the years to come as this group continues to get better. So I think a Detmers or a Soriano, which we'll talk about in a moment, would have been the right kind of move. But anyone that was going to be gone in 2 months, that we're so close to being on the line as it is that you don't want to look back in a couple of years and be like, wow, we sold the farm for a team that missed the wild card by a couple of games anyway.
Dude, I was pumped with the Jays trade deadline for a few different reasons. One, I think they're just in an interesting spot. Like there's a lot of different focuses. So if you look at the Jays now, they are a big market team with big money owners that will spend big and continue to spend big. That's not going to change anytime soon. So if this season they don't make the playoffs, and they probably won't, and it's a write-off, you do want to be looking towards the future as well. They did have some expiring deals that you can get some value back from. But also, man, the Jays are 4 games back of a wild card spot. And while they are unlikely, I wouldn't call them dead just quite yet, right? Like the Tigers sold, the Orioles sold, and the Jays are 1 win behind them. So I think they can get them. It'll be a race to the Guardians, who are a 500 team right now. The Twins, I'm not that impressed with. The Rangers have lost 6 in a row, and the Jays are behind them. If the Jays can pick off 1 team in a row, maybe they get in there. It's going to require a winning streak of 6, 7, 8, 9 games in there and to play some hot ball. But if you can win every series from here on out, which the Jays have done before, it is possible. So I think you kind of had to balance between not waving the white flag completely on the season, but also acknowledging that you're probably not going to make it this season, and also figure out what you want to do in future seasons. And I was actually amazed by what the Jays did. And I'm keen to hear your take on it. And I wanted to start the conversation off by talking about not the future. So let's talk about the future in a second. Let's just talk about the 2026 Toronto Blue Jays. And I want to ask you legitimately, and I'm going to answer before you do, and I'll give you a chance after. The question is, are the Toronto Blue Jays better right now, today, than they were yesterday based on the trades? And here's what is out off the main roster in big pieces. Kevin Gausman, Dalton Varsho, and Jeff Hoffman. In is Soriano, Jamison Tyone, and a mixture of more playing time for guys like Miles Straw, Nathan Lucas, and then in the bullpen, increased roles for Little and Fisher and guys like that. So
Arrighetti as well. Like
Arrighetti will be. He's not on the
starter.
roster now. He's off the DL in 2 weeks. So you add Arrighetti.
Yeah.
Let's include him in that because in 2 weeks he'll be back. So
Yeah.
you add Arrighetti, Tyone, and Soriano. You lose Gausman, Varsho, and Hoffman, and then Soriano, Tyone, and then Miles will have more of an increased role in the bullpen. So just honest question, based on 2026, not last year, not this year, how they're going this year, are the Jays better, worse, or around the same as what they were yesterday?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I'm about to make a case for the Blue Jays making the playoff. What odds do you think the Blue Jays to make the playoffs are?
11s?
They were 11s just before. They've come into 9s off that win against the Astros today.
Because
I think...
Dude, what they've lost is Gausman, who has been struggling the last 6 weeks. Varsho has a WAR of under 1. Like, he's just a replacement level player right now in 2026. And Jeff Hoffman has cost the Jays some games this year and hasn't been all that great. So the Jays are getting rid of a number 3-ish level starter, a center fielder who's playing at a replacement level, and an okay bullpen arm, all of whom are on expiring deals and weren't going to be, well, Hoffman had maybe one more year, but they weren't going to be back with the Jays next year anyway, so they end up getting pieces back. And in comes Soriano, who is having a really good year. Jamison Tyone, whatever, he's going to fill the gap until Arrighetti gets back, who's a number 3 level starter. Honestly, comparable to Gausman in the last 6 weeks. And then Miles Straw and Nathan Lucas had great games today. Straw had a couple hits. great catch in center field. Nathan Lucas is now batting leadoff. And while he didn't get a hit today, he had 2 really productive at-bats to bring them around. Vladdy is the big thing. He's got to get hot. And Brandon Little all of a sudden looks good. So I actually think the Jays are around the same of what they were 2 weeks ago, which is an underperforming team that has pieces there that could see them still go on a run.
I agree, absolutely. I'll tell you who else looked good today, and I think looks the best he'd looked in one outing for years. Shane Bieber.
Yep.
Like if Shane Bieber gets back to, I don't think he'll ever get back to where he was. I've kind of spoken a few times on this show about how when they brought in the Spider Attack ban, a lot of his spin rate dropped. He's never going to be a 10 strikeout guy in a night again. But he was hitting his spots today, and the Astros are a really quality lineup that are even stronger now with the returns of some of their guys and Varsho coming into the lineup. I think he looked dominant. And if you've got a guy like that, plus you've got Dylan Cease who's going to win the Cy Young, plus you've got Soriano, plus you've got Eric. Yeah, like it. I all of a sudden I think it's a much more well-rounded rotation. It's a stronger rotation, and you're not losing much in the lineup. And I think you hit the nail on the head. The one thing we haven't seen, and I've been watching it closely for a few reasons, we don't know whether we will see it, but a hot month or two for Vladdy completely changes this team, right? Like if he has one of those 10, 11, 12 home run months in the month of August, this team looks completely different. And I think for the guys that were traded away, guys like Varsho, a scenery change was needed anyway. I think there's a level mentally to Varsho where the amount of times he let the Jays down in the World Series last year, he doesn't look like he's come back the same guy. He had a walk-off grand slam a couple of months ago that felt like maybe the turning point for Varsho in his season, but it hasn't happened. And I think you weren't going to get the productivity out of him anyway. He might go and be a great piece now for the Astros, but I think for a few reasons it wasn't going to happen in Toronto. The one I'm interested in your thoughts on is George Springer staying put.
Well, George Springer is hitting over 300 in his last 4 weeks and has been probably the Jays' most productive player. I think Springer is going to ride it out. I don't think he's going anywhere. Obviously, he might re-sign next year with the Jays, even on a 1 or 2 year deal. I think he loves it in Toronto. I think everything he's kind of indicated says that like this is where he's felt the most at home and loves the group, and you see him interact with the guys. Obviously, he's kind of past his prime, but Springer's hot right now, man. He's kind of been pacing the offense lately.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There's every chance they've already had a behind the scenes conversation about bringing him back next year anyway, whereas your guys like Gossman and Varsho were much more likely to hit free agency and test the market. So therefore getting something now before they expire was critical. Whereas to be honest, I don't think Springer was bringing much in anyway. To your point, he's had a good few weeks, but he's an old guy. He's injury prone. I don't think you would have got much of value for him. You're better off just trying to ride this hot streak and see if you can bring him back on the cheap over the next couple of years.
So you take a look at the rotation you mentioned earlier. So Cease, Soriano, Savage, Arrighetti, and Bieber, dude. That's actually a pretty nasty rotation. The Jays are going to have chances to win from mid-August onward, but Soriano is obviously the big one. And the Jays had to give up Arjun Nimala, who's probably the most talked about prospect in the Jays system. I'm probably not as high on him as other people are, but he's still going to be a really good player. I do believe that. But he's also a shortstop in a position that the Jays might end up spending a bunch of money on anyways to bring in a free agent and a hitter. And if you can get a pitcher like Soriano, you go for. Now, I've been noted on this pod, not to say Soriano's a bad pitcher, but I said at the start he's way overperforming. And you look at his metrics, he's in a good spot percentile-wise in so many metrics, but the expected batting average and expected ERA is much higher than what it actually is this year. They're not bad numbers. They're just not as great as they are. However, he has high upside stuff. He's going to be working with Pete Walker, who's the pitcher whisperer sometimes in this situation. Same with Arrighetti, man. He might benefit from Pete Walker. But the big one I wanted to take a look at, and we talked about this on the pod, is the catching situation that Soriano goes into. And that's what I'm most excited for. So he goes from a situation with the LA Angels where he had a rotating cast of characters to now he has Alejandro Kirk and Brandon Valenzuela. And if you take a look at the LA Angels in 2026, they are last in the major leagues in catcher framing runs. So how your catcher is framing and positioning and where it equates to the runs. They're minus 13. That's the lowest in Major League Baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays are plus 15. That's top in Major League Baseball. In the 2020s, in the Kirk era, Jays are 4th overall. And since Soriano's been in the league, the Angels are 28th overall, minus 41 in catcher framing runs. So Soriano is a guy that nibbles around a lot at the edges, and he uses that to try to be at his advantage. And he has gone from a situation where catchers have been a detriment to the style that he pitches and still put in good numbers. Now he gets a better pitching coach. You talked about the Angels pitching coach a couple weeks ago, right? Like now all of a sudden he gets a better pitching
and
coach
Pete Walker
with a reputation of reviving guys' careers and prolonging guys' careers, who has survived multiple managerial regimes. That's always the sign of a good pitching coach, right? And he's got maybe the best catching situation he could ask for in the league, and he's under control for a couple more seasons. So I think you always take the option of getting a better pitcher than you can if you for that infielder. And on top of that, guys like Cody Ponce are going to be coming back. So I was pumped with the Jays because they also got prospects. Let's not forget about that. They got prospects back for Gossman, comparable to what Tarek Skubal got over with the Detroit Tigers haul. So I was really excited because I think the Jays, you can still, if you're an optimistic person, you can still hold out some hope the Jays could go on a run. Don't expect it, but it is possible, and they set themselves up really, really nicely.
I think one more really key thing about that rotation we just talked about. So you've got Cease till the end of 2032. You've got Savage for another 2 years after this one. You've got Arrighetti till the end of 2029. He has 3 arbitration years after this year. You've got Soriano for 2 years after this year. He hits free agency in 2029 as well. The only piece of that rotation is Shane Bieber, who, maybe he comes back. But don't forget, next year, there's a guy called Jose Barrios, one of our guys, who's going to be coming back. He's got 2 years left on that deal as well. So even if you're swapping out Shane Bieber for Barrios, that's still a really good rotation. And it's not just for this year anymore. It's now talking about the next 2, 3, 4 years with a chance for a pitching prospect to come up in that time as well. And maybe, knock off the SP5 and claim a spot themselves.
Yeah, and Yimi Garcia is also on his way back. Like, he's another high leverage arm that has been pitching right now in, I think he had an outing. He was really, really good out in single A on a rehab stuff. So all of a sudden you have Yimi Garcia, who is a high leverage guy who has played that high leverage role before, who kind of maybe goes into the setup role to replace Jeff Hoffman. So I think the Jays are at a net positive actually this year based on how guys are performing. Varsho at his best is the better player in the Arrighetti deal, but he's not performing it this year, and he's gone anyway. So, dude, I was actually pumped with the Jays trade deadline because, I'm not optimistic they're going to make the playoffs, but it gives me a reason to watch. They didn't just – I would have been really depressed if the Jays just sold everybody and were like, okay, last year was a
see you next year.
Flush.
Yeah.
Vladdy's the big one, though. He's got to step up, dude.
Yeah. Even these bullpen pieces, though. 2 more years of Louis Varland in arbitration after this year. Tyler Rogers signed for 3 years after this year. Like, all of the pieces are coming back, and you're just trusting that the first 2/3 of the season for this lineup is too bad to be true because, you're keeping a lot of those core pieces. Last year, this team was many, many times a few inches away from winning the World Series.
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, good breakdown there. And Spoon, we obviously there was a lot of other trades. It's really hard. We're not going to recap them all. You have Google for that if you want to go do that. There are a lot of big name trades. But I think we can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by going over some of the trades, but by doing it in classic X-Pac style in naming a theme team. Now, I don't think we need to draft here. I think you and I can co-GM and just pick our team. But we do. What's our normal roster size? Help me out here.
We go every position, so nine positions plus a
DH.
Yeah, a DH. So 9 there. Then we go 3 starting pitchers and 2 relievers. So it's always 14 to keep the consistency, so we can get Rolsey to run the algorithm and share the results when we come back Friday.
Let's say pitchers to last because there are more here. I wrote out all of them, right-handed and left-handed. I did send them to you for pitchers. There's a huge list of them that we probably have to go through. But position players, I also sent you the list of every single player. And this is in the last week and a half. This is really since the Curtis Mead trade because that's what kind of kicked off everything. that was where I put the limit on it. I think some trades just happen naturally. So the Mead one was the first one that kind of felt like the trade deadline. So maybe we'll go position players. And do you want to go around the horn and start with catcher and then work our way to the outfielder?
Yeah, let's do that. I think the catcher one's probably pretty straightforward. Not a lot of catchers moved around, but I think a big name, and actually a guy I flagged a couple of weeks ago as potentially being traded. The writing was on the wall for this guy when they gave Samuel Basayo like a 7-year deal as a 21-year-old catcher. There was no room for Adley to be the catcher of the future for the Orioles, but I think he's a big move, and I think the Red Sox have done really well to get him behind the dish. I like what Boston did.
They haven't had an all-star catcher since 2010 in Victor Martinez, and they've had such inconsistent catching this year. Navarro's been a bit of a enigma, I suppose, right? So, I mean, the other ones were Jake Rogers, and he's just basically the backup that, he'll come in and back up there. Bo Naylor, non-name for this situation in this year. Liam Hicks, he's a pretty good move, actually, that the Rays added. That's a sneaky good piece. He could have been in the equation of a nice little depth and role player that the Rays have acquired.
Yeah, it's terrible news for Sophia, who drafted Nick Fortes yesterday, because the Rays called up a catching prospect who played today, and they've now got Liam Hicks. All of a sudden, Nick Fortes could be third on the depth chart for the Rays as a catcher. But yeah, I like Hicks. I'm surprised the Marlins moved him, actually. But they've got a couple of guys who can kind of play there that they still believe in. I still think, though, if we're doing this, it's probably going to be Adley on prestige factor. And
yeah, it is Adley.
The upside there, switch hitting potential, 30 home run guy.
So we have to name a first base, second base, third base, shortstop, and I kind of lump them into some that have natural positions, and then infielder kind of play multiple. Some have them more natural than the other. So let's go first baseman, because I think there's two guys that we could decide between, and I think we know which way we're going to go for. Nathaniel Lau got traded from the Nationals to the Guardians, and I think that's a nice pickup for a depth piece as well. And then the Nationals trade away Luis Garcia Jr. to the Yankees, and Garcia hits a homer today, and it was a big go-ahead homer and a home run in a comeback win. But yeah, I mean, we're going Garcia, right?
Yeah, it's got to be Garcia. He's one, like, as far as a positional need for the D-backs, a power hitting first baseman after the baseball terrorist Pavin Smith just ruined our first 3 months of the season. Like, that was really the top of my shopping list as far as position players. And he didn't go for as much as I thought he would. I thought the Yankees got a really good deal and addressed a lot of needs they've got there. They can play him at DH as well. I think Luis Garcia is a great piece. He's probably on track for close to 40 home runs this season. And if we've got Adley behind the plate and Garcia at first, we've got a lot of power on this team already.
Here's our infielders, and some are minor leaguers, so we'll kind of put a line through them as we go. So we've got Luis Ariz, Josh Smith on the Blue Jays from the Rangers. He might play, but he's probably not. Marcelo Mayer, he'll be there. Juan Brito on the Reds now from the Gardens. Curtis Mead on the Red Sox from the Nationals. Nacho Alvarez Jr. from the Braves, now on the Angels. Sammy Stafuro on the Mets from the Reds. Demurray Pena from the Blue Jays from the Rangers. I have no idea who this guy is, so probably not.
Feels like opening the Destiny draft packs yesterday.
Yeah, and then Gage Workman over at third base. I'm going to make an instant case to say, can we please put Curtis Mead back on a theme team over at third base based on his 850 OPS, the need that they traded for? I know he's injured right now, but we'll go healthy team here, and the one that kicked it off. Can we please, Spoon, put him at third base?
Yeah, I think he's definitely got to be the guy. I actually don't think there were a lot of high-level infielders. And when you kind of break it down like that, it actually shows there wasn't a lot there, right? Like pitching and outfield is probably where we're going to have to maybe back and forth on a few guys, but there weren't some big names. A lot of them were prospects, to your point. So I think I've got no problem slotting Mead in at third now, and we'll figure out our up the middle guys in a minute.
Well, let's talk about Luis Ariz, because he's for sure on this team, but I feel like we are going to have the same problem that the Phillies had, is where do you play Luis Ariz on our team? Probably second base, I guess, based on where we've just put Mead.
Yeah.
The Phillies have the same question. By the way, with the Phillies, Trey Turner's been a below average infielder this year, so Ariz might play even some shortstop potentially.
I think you could move Bryson Stott across to short and play Ariz at second.
Yeah,
Ariz has turned into a positive defender at second base, and he was quite vocal all offseason about only wanting to sign with a team who would play him at second. Obviously, he wouldn't quite have the same pull when he's getting traded away, and I think he'll be happy to be on a contender like he is with the Phillies. But I don't think they'll want to upset too much what is working for Luis Arraez this year, when last year as a first baseman with the Padres, he just wasn't having the same level of success that we've seen throughout his career. So I think he's definitely a second baseman. I think the Phillies will find a way to make that work, and it might be Stott over to shortstop, and I'm not sure what you do with Trey Turner then. But yeah, I think we can put him in at second on our team, and we're now just looking for a shortstop, right?
Which is Meyer.
Yeah. Where does Heliot Ramos play? Outfield, right?
Outfield. We can go through the outfielders in a second. Why don't we put in Meyer at short for now? And if we see a guy when we go through the outfielders that we can swap in that spot,
yeah,
we can move him around. But our infield is Adley Rutschman catching, Garcia at first, Arraez at second, Mead at third, and Meyer at short. Not bad.
Yeah, it probably dropped off a little bit after we started with Adley and Garcia, but I still think there's some nice names there, and it's probably more a result of the lack of movement, for infielders that we kind of had a limited pool to choose from.
And tell me if I missed anybody for outfielders, but we got Dalton Varsho on the Astros from the Blue Jays, Heliot Ramos on the Yankees from the Giants, Lars Nootbaar on the Diamondbacks from the Cardinals, Joe Adell goes to the Guardians. Another nice move here for the Guardians and the Angels. Angels get something back, and Joe Adell. Just some nice veteran presence, I think, on the Guardians. Taylor Ward goes to the Mariners. Another nice kind of role player. Brenton Doyle on the White Sox. Eli White goes from the Braves to the Red Sox. And then you got guys like Jack Sawinski on the Rays, Colby Thomas for the Phillies, Cameron Misner on the Phillies. Kind of your throw-in guys, I guess, in bigger trades. But Lane Thomas on the Braves and Jonathan Rodriguez on the Pirates. So we need 3 outfielders, dude.
Just circling back to shortstop real quick, a guy we missed talking about, he hasn't been having a good season at all, but he has landed on your Toronto Blue Jays. Josh Smith from the Rangers is a shortstop. I'd be probably taking him over Meyer. I know he hasn't had a great season with minus 0.6 WAR, but he was a 2.9 WAR guy last year and a 3.5 WAR guy the year before. He won a Silver Slugger. So I think we probably want to be looking at maybe Josh Smith over Marcelo Meyer because, yeah, he's young, but if we're building this team for right now, Josh Smith's done it at the big league level, right? Like he's hit 30 big league home runs and plays pretty good defense. So maybe a name to watch for the Jays potentially, and a name for our theme team. I'm not sure whether you want to make that move.
Let's put him in as okay, let's make the decision. Let's go Josh Smith right next to him. We'll come back at the very end and make the call. That's a really good case, though, and makes me optimistic as a Jays fan.
Yeah, I just think as well, the algorithm's not going to give any love to Meyer. He's effectively still a prospect, right? At 23 years old. He hasn't done anything yet. He might be a guy we look back in a couple of years and go, why did we say Josh Smith on theme team number 11?
And he's going to get opportunities.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at it right now, it's probably Josh Smith on body of work.
All right, let's go Josh Smith.
I think
outfielders, though. I mean, probably Varsho in center.
Varsho in center, Taylor Ward in left. I think they're going to be hard to beat. I think they're probably 2 of the bigger names. Heliot Ramos having a pretty decent season is maybe in the conversation. Colby Thomas, probably not. Who am I missing? Who's a really obvious one? Yeah, I mean, I'm not thrilled by the Nootbaar move, even as a D-backs fan, to be honest. Like he's hit below 700 OPS for 2 seasons in a row, so we really have to go back through the archives. Joe Adell's probably got to be there in right. I would have thought. Defensive superstar, robbed 3 home runs in a game earlier this year. He is very boom or bust. He's hitting home runs or striking out. His WAR numbers aren't great, but he's got 16 bombs this year. Brenton
Doyle's been struggling. What about? Yeah, I mean, Brenton Doyle has really been struggling, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I probably want Adell over Nootbaar, but I mean, except that they're very like for like in that sense. I just think Adell's more of that impact guy, right? Like he will have 2 or 3 nights doing absolutely nothing, but then he might rob a couple of home runs. He might go 2 for 2 with a couple of home runs. Him, Heliot Ramos, or Nootbaar probably right around the mark, and we also need to figure out who we want at DH. We're not exactly overflowing at any of these positions right now.
Dude, I probably would rather Ramos based on just the stats for this year in outfield, I think. And then Joe Adell maybe is your DH.
Yeah, or probably the other way around because Adell's glove's better than his bat, right? So if you put Adell in right, just because of what he can do with the glove, and Heliot Ramos is your DH, unless we missed a catcher or a first baseman, I definitely don't think we missed a middle infielder as far as who could play DH. There weren't a lot of sexy names really in any of these positions, so I think that's probably where we're going to land.
Low would be or Lau. Which Low is Lau?
I think he's Lau, the former Red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean his season's
okay.
The only way you
266.
Yeah, you'd put him in if you didn't go Adele, right? If you went Ramos at right, Lau would be our DH. If you wanted to get Adele's glove in there, then Ramos would be the DH.
But this is a cool exercise. You're right. It really does show that this trade deadline was more about the pitching, as it usually is anyways, than it was the position players. Like not a lot of bats were moved.
Yeah, and I think maybe a lot of the bats that were talked about being moved weren't either, right? Like we were talking about Zach Neto, CJ Abrams, James Wood, a few of the Marlins names like Otto Lopez. Like these guys ended up staying put ultimately. I think as well it shows that when you're locked in on some of these names as far as moving the needle for your team as a buyer, you probably have a little bit of an overinflated idea of what kind of difference they're going to be. Now when we rattle off the names, we're like, yeah, okay, a lot of these guys are probably bench bats on the best teams in baseball.
The only other case that you probably could make is, do you have Meyer at DH?
He just hasn't done anything for me, to be honest. Like if we're putting Meyer in the team, it's to get rid of Josh Smith. I think we're locked in on either Adele at right and Heliot Ramos at DH, or Ramos at right field and Lau at DH. I think it's got to be a combo of that.
Yeah, I think let's go Ramos at DH and Adele at right field.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we got Rutschman, Garcia, Arise, Mead, Smith, Ward, Varsho, Adele, and Ramos. Not going to win a lot of games, but we knew that would be the case. But it is interesting just to phrase it like that about who was actually moved in terms of making them an impact move. And I feel like you compare that to other sports leagues where you see in the NBA, like superstar starters traded every trade deadlines. In the NHL, there's always a top line guy that's moved because someone's out of the race. This is interesting.
How many games does this team win? Is this team a playoff team? I don't think so.
Well, the starting rotation might make them that.
Yeah, agreed. The lineup right now is a little bit, I would say, an 81 win team, right? But some really strong pitching that we'll do in a second could definitely move the needle.
I'm just doing a quick count. Over 50 pitchers were moved, man. Not all of them big leaguers, but a lot of them either big league time or close. I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, I guess we start with our starters. I mean, there's names like Skubal, Bubik, Robbie Ray. Those are your lefties. Those are some big names.
Takes one of the slots, right? One of our 3 starter slots is definitely Skubal. We now need to make a case. I feel like a lot of these other names are all at a very similar level. Like I think Casey Myers is very good. Soriano, we've spoken about some inconsistency, but he's having a brilliant season. Kevin Gossman, until this year, was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Bubich is great. Yeah, Robbie Ray is having a good season despite the strikeout numbers not being there. I think we could definitely find a few ways to play this.
Luis Castillo's on the list.
Yeah, I'm off him now. I think his ERA is at 6. I think we can pen him.
Clay Holmes got traded. There's some big names that got traded, man.
Who would you most want on your team right now outside of Skubal on this list?
Well, I mean, there's one guy that I've been a noted huge fan of over the years, including last year, but he's struggling this year.
Bubich?
Yeah, Bubich. I do really like him, but his numbers, he's got a sub-1 WAR this year, so I can make a case. I'm just probably biased because I genuinely just like him.
I think Casey Myers, 2.7 ERA, whip below 1, 2.8 WAR. Like as a D-backs fan, hoping this was the move we were going to get, I think Myers can probably separate himself a little bit from the next few names in that pool. And if we've got to pick an SB2, I probably want Casey Myers to be that guy.
All right. Him. What about Robbie Ray?
It's probably Ray or Soriano, right?
Ray's got a 3.08 ERA. He's got a 2 WAR. But Soriano, his start was so good this year. He's got a 2.7 WAR, man.
Yeah, and the strikeout numbers, he's got 20 more strikeouts in the same number of innings.
Yeah, it might be, it literally might be him. I would take him over, I'd take him over Gossman.
Yeah, so with the Jays. I think it's got to be Soriano. I think as well, not sure how much the algorithm will take this into account, but Robbie Ray's had some big playoff meltdowns in the past, right? And if we want this team to be going deep in October, I think Soriano, as an untested guy with a bit more to prove than 34-year-old Robbie Ray, the numbers are very similar, but I think I want Soriano.
Yeah, and his start was pretty good. So yeah, I mean, we go Mize, Skubal, and Soriano.
It's a much better team now, isn't it?
It's a pretty good rotation, man.
Okay, 2 relievers. This will be interesting.
Do we even entertain Hoffman?
I think Clay Holmes has to be one of them.
Clay Holmes? Give me some of his numbers this year.
That was a surprising one. So Clay Holmes has a 2 WAR, which for a reliever is really good, an ERA of 2.39 and a WHIP of 1.1. And he had a year or two left on his deal. So I don't think it wasn't a guarantee that he was going to be traded, right? So by that logic, a team's kind of overpaid to get him. I think that's...
What about Luke Weaver?
How does that compare? Let's have a look. Weaver's got... No, that's Jeff Weaver. He retired many moons ago.
Luke Weaver's got, I think, might have a sub-2 ERA.
It does, wow, and a WHIP of 0.81, 2 WAR as well. I mean, if we're looking at just the guys from the Mets, Weaver's better than Holmes. So unless we can find 2 guys that beat both of them, Weaver's definitely going to be on this team.
What about Camilo? No, Camilo Duvall's struggling this year. Kirby Yates, what's he doing this year? He got traded?
Yeah. I don't think he's having a good enough season. It was the Angels, right?
What about Ryan Zefferjohn?
I feel like 1 team was too many for that guy to be on a theme team. 2 might be just too much.
What's his numbers, though, compared to Clay Holmes? Oh, okay, here's another one. AJ Minter. Another Met, though.
What about Eric Miller? I feel like he was having a good season.
Dude, AJ Minter's actually got some... Okay, you pull up Eric Miller, and I'll pull up AJ and Minter, and let's compare. So ERA, Eric Miller, what do you got for Miller?
2.76.
Minter's 2.22. Games played?
38.
25 for Minter, so smaller sample size. 24 innings for Minter.
Yeah, 32 for Miller, but his WHIP's nearly 1.4, so he hasn't been clean.
WHIP for Minter is 1.02.
Yeah, I think Minter's ahead of Miller. It's probably, is it Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver, or is it Luke Weaver and AJ Minter?
Or, I can't believe we're going down this trade. What about Brooks Raley? It's Brooks Raley, dude. Go look at his numbers. He's got a 1.6 WAR, 1.96 ERA in 41 innings, and a 1.08 WHIP.
How are the Mets so bad this year with these 3 guys in the bullpen? I don't understand that.
4 guys that we've talked about being traded.
Yeah, like that's got me a little bit rattled, to be honest. I didn't know they were going that well across the board from a bullpen point of view.
They just, maybe we just don't hear about this because they're just behind in games and their starting pitchers have been that much of a debacle and their offense hasn't been clipping that they...
There's a fifth Met elite reliever.
Who?
Huascar Brazoban as well. His ERA is 2.56 with 1.6 WAR. His bullpen was ridiculous.
Such a good bullpen, man. They were probably set up to be pretty good in the playoffs, but they had nothing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say then that we probably need to go.
I think it's Weaver and Holmes, right?
Give me Holmes' numbers again.
2.39 ERA, 1.1 WHIP, and a 2.0 WAR.
Brooks Raley, man. How many innings has Holmes pitched this year?
52.2.
Raley's pitched 11 less innings, and his WAR is 1.6 with a 1.96 ERA and 1.08 WHIP.
Strikeouts?
40.
Yeah, okay, Holmes has 45 in less innings, so it could be Raley. I'm happy with Raley and Weaver.
I would have agreed with you at the start, but this is me just Googling this as we go. I think we're going to go Brooks Raley, dude.
I think so too.
Who's our closer?
Probably Weaver.
Yeah, I think so. Not bad. Or is the algorithm going to like Holmes more though?
Yeah, I think he's a sexier name and he's been doing it for longer, right?
All right, let's go Holmes over Raley then.
All right. One I wanted to run past you that just popped up on as I was looking. Does Tyrone Taylor get the start in right field over Joe Adell? Joe Adell has negative 0.1 WAR. Tyrone Taylor has 0.6 WAR. He's got an OPS plus of 116. He's hit 10 home runs. I mean, it's not the sexiest move. We're kind of rearranging the chairs on the Titanic here a little bit, but
Let's do it. I'm in.
Tyrone Taylor in, right? All right. You want around the horn?
Yeah, so we got Rutschman as catcher, Garcia at first, Arise at second, Mead at third, Josh Smith at shortstop, Taylor Ward in left, Varsho in center, and we said we're going to put Taylor in right field.
Yeah, and Ramos DH.
Ramos DH, and then Skubal, Mize, and Soriano as our starters, with Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver out of the pen.
I want to say it's a 95 win team. I don't know if you've got a guesstimate.
I'm going to say it's 92. They're a wild card team.
It's a long way off some of the legendary theme teams we've built, but it does go to show that maybe this, the talent in this trade deadline was very top heavy, right? And it was really starting pitching. I mean, we could have replaced Soriano and even Mize with probably 4 or 5 other guys at a similar level. We can't say the same about any other position there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a cool way to break it down. You go around and you can try to name the best at each position that got traded. And yeah, just the volume of pitchers traded. Teams need help in the bullpen, right? They want to be able to hold on to leads that hopefully they build up in the playoffs.
You know what'll be fun? When we're doing baseball expats in 2029, we should revisit the 2026 trade deadline, draft from players then, because I think some of these prospects are going to be up and contributing in the next couple of years. And we could look back on some of these moves. I mean, I've talked about the Soto rental that the Padres did before, where they gave up Abrams, Wood, and Mackenzie Gore. Like, if you were going back a few years and doing this for some previous deadlines, we could be looking at a completely different scenario.
Why don't we do that? We should actually create a list. Maybe, we can probably use AI to help us out, right? Like we can go to the trade deadline tracker from 2025, 24, and 23. Those would be the last 3 years. We can just put it into chat and say, hey, can you tell us all the prospects that got traded, sorted into position? And we could probably name a theme team of guys that got traded as prospects that had not made their major league debut yet.
Yeah, which gives you a lot of hope, I think, as a listener of a fan who sold today, that it's not all doom and gloom, right? Because some of these guys will be up and making a difference before you know it.
I think that is a really good idea. Well, that wraps up sort of our trade section of the pod this week. Couple more things to get through before we get to Spoon's picks. And they both kind of relate. So we'll start with some international baseball news and things going around the world, something I'm keen to chat about a little bit more now that I'm no longer working at Baseball Australia, by the way. I'm sort of on my own for those that missed that news. But part of that is the Aussie Baseball Tracker, man. You're a fan of Australian baseball. You're from Australia. If you go to www.aussiebaseballtracker.com or just on baseballexpats.com, you can go there right now. One of our multiple news site features. We'll talk about the other in a moment. But I'm quite proud of this one. You go on there, baseballexpress.com, right on the homepage, there's the Aussie Pro Tracker, and it really tracks how every single Australian is doing, not just in the major leagues, but in every level of baseball. So there's a drop-down menu there, MLB and minor leagues, Korea, independent leagues, foreign leagues, Japan, the Women's Professional Baseball League, there's ABL alumni. Then I've gone through and found every Aussie that's played in NCAA Division 1, 2, 3, the Independent College Association, and junior college, coaches and staffs, and even have a record section and Aussie major leaguers of like trackers to go there. And that's more of a labor of love and passion because it's all about Aussies, but every day it tells you how they did. So I can tell you today, Aussies in action. It was a Monday in the States, so minor league not really around. Bazana didn't play, Mead on the DL. Ashton Kennedy was 1 for 1 with a run and a walk, played in the Dominican League, and Juan Manuel Ramirez having a good season, 2 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. But if you go through there right now, you can see all the stats of all the players all year. There's the game logs. It's now embedded on the Baseball Expats website. But if you're a fan of Australian baseball and you just wake up or you're at 11 a.m. one morning and you want to check in how the guys are doing, do it on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's kind of cool. I'm quite proud of this one to go take a look at how the Aussies are doing. So there's our new site feature on expats.com is the Aussie Player Tracker.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's super clean. You've done a great job. It's so cool to see effectively the baseball pyramid, but just honed in on one nationality, right? And Aussies were mostly interested in these guys because you can get lost sometimes in how deep the minor leagues are, and then all the independent leagues as well, the international leagues. But to see it broken down, obviously we've got our two major leaguers now. We've got a few guys in AAA and AA, but then you've got all the A and rookie ball, and
we'll go to KBO.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Go to foreign leagues. We now have a guy in the CPBL. This would have been handy in early, like 8 months ago, leading up to the World Baseball Classic, being like, here are 60 players playing pro and some in college. Who are you picking on your team kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the NCAA section, when we get back around there next season, is going to be just as key. I love the women's component to it as well. You've spoken a lot about women's baseball the last few weeks and everything that's sort of happening in that scene at the moment as well. So very cool. I think a really handy resource for a lot of Aussies and a lot of baseball fans like my mates who sort of got into baseball this year, not just through the major leagues, but watching the World Baseball Classic as well. Like by the time we get around to the next WBC, there's going to be people that using the Baseball Expats tool have just been following along for a long time and tracking some of these guys. I also love the all-time leaderboards. I think that's a really cool feature.
Curtis Mead, by the way, if he had finished his month, he would have qualified, would have had the best month by any Aussie ever in Major League Baseball in July. His numbers were crazy good, man.
Yeah, wow. I mean, just seeing him now, he's already 6th all-time for games played as an Aussie in the majors. He's 2nd all-time in home runs with 22. Bazana's in 4th. I think over the next year or two, we're going to start seeing more and more of these Aussies that they've got that little active green dot next to them as we see this baseball resurgence in Australia.
Yeah, so if you're on Aussie, if you're in the baseball community or you follow baseball or you're Australian, Aussie, baseballtracker.com. You're right, did add the women's section to it because the WPBL started. Takara Heldenhays went 1 for 1 with a walk, a double, and a run in the debut representing Australia. Molly Pattison, the business, an 18-year-old, also got in the game. Both of them were on the Emeralds in the World Cup. We'll talk with Rolsey about that when he's back, about the broadcast, about the Women's Pro League. Will be a weekend. Takara's actually agreed to come on the show. So she'll jump on for 10 or 20 minutes and we'll chat about what her experience is like as a pro baseball player. That's pretty exciting, man. Good for them to have a Women's Pro League going on. I hope that league goes well. Just some other notes quickly for you before we get to your tips around the league. Just things to note in the baseball world. The SoftBank Hawks dominating, by the way, right now in Japan. Like they are rolling. They had a 22 spot. They popped on one of their biggest rivals the other week. They've won 8 of 9 games. They are almost doubling their amount of wins to losses. They're rolling. They won the championship 2 years ago. One of the best atmospheres. But on that team is Kensuke Kondoh, who is maybe going to win the MVP in Japan this year. He is elite. He's 29 years old. He's won championships in Japan. He's won with the WBC. I'm wondering if Kondoh might end up being one of the biggest names that North American baseball fans just never hear of because he's a star in Japan. He isn't, there's been no indication yet, I don't think, that he's going to go to Major League Baseball. He's getting a little bit older. But if go take a look, dude, do yourself a favor right now. Go search up Kensuke Kondoh. Kondoh spelled Kundoh. Go take a look at some of his numbers. Oh, shoot. I thought he was younger. He's 33. He's never going to play in Major League Baseball. Damn. He's got a career 308 batting average and 881 OPS in 15 NPB seasons. Go look at some of his numbers, dude.
Yeah, I've just got it up on BREF now. Well, which team's he on at the moment?
He's on SoftBank. He used to be on the Nippon Ham Fighters.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that you know a guy's old when you have to scroll this far on like his batting stats. Debuted at 18. That's crazy.
He's hitting 311 this year with 23 homers and 79 RBIs. Last year, 301. Year before that, 314. Year before that, 303, 302, 298. Hit 340 1 year. Hit 302. Good power numbers this year. He'll probably set a career high for homers. He's at 23 this season. That's the most in his career. A bit of speed. He's got 67 stolen bases in his career.
Casual 1.1 OPS in the WBC in 2023. Not bad.
Ridiculous. Maybe one of the biggest stars. That's what's going on in Japan. Kensuke Kondoh. Keep an eye on him. And by the way, over in Korea, LG Twins, on that's the Aussie link with the Aussie tracker. Lachlan Wells, one of the 2 main starters on the LG Twins, pitches for our Adelaide Giants Spoon. His brother will be pitching for the Giants this year.
Ballers.
Our Malls ballers, the Adelaide Malls ballers. Alex Wells and Lachie Wells could pitch together on the same team this year. So that's a good one to link, because what if Lachie Wells pitches in Adelaide this summer after on a championship contending team and the defending champions, LG Twins in Korea? Probably worth the price of admission, those $20 just to go down and watch Alec or Lachie Wells pitch.
I'm very much looking forward to the ABL season
in Australia. And then the other new function we do have on our website, by the way, is a pretty cool one. BaseballExpats.com. Go click Spoons MLB Picks. And Rolsey did an amazing job of programming this. You do tweet your picks. Tough day for you today. Down a few units. But yesterday or Sunday, I guess it was, you were up heaps on a 6-2. It tracks how you do over the month.
12.5.
It's an investment game, but pretty cool functionality that now tracks your picks, Spoon.
Yeah, I love it. Rosie's done a terrific job, as you said. Sunday was ridiculous. If you plug in the date range, actually, it says 14 units profit on Sunday. We had a lot of nice winners. The highlight, and probably the highlight as a tipster as Spoon does baseball, hit a play at $12.50, if you don't mind. That was the A's to score 6 or more runs and Jack Perkins to get 7 or more strikeouts. He got 9 strikeouts. We needed to wait a little longer for the A's to get their 6th run. But they got it in the bottom of the 9th. So that was a big collect, picked up over 6 units profit there. And fortunately now everyone's got an easy place, not to just see the picks in the morning when they come out, but to follow along as well. Because sometimes if you're new to baseball betting or you've got a few bets on across different books, which, the one edge we have as a punter is price shopping and making sure you've got the best price available. Instead of checking your apps and the trackers that way, just check out baseballexperts.com. You'll see how many strikeouts you guys have got, how many runs you need, whatever the play is that we've got, you'll see it there.
I think it's kind of cool because you can take a look at date ranges. So let's take a look here. Like if you just look at the last 3 days, you got a 7-5 record, but it kind of shows this snapshot of how when you're betting on baseball, you do almost have to look at it like an investment portfolio. Like some days you're going to be down, other days you're going to be up. And if you're smart about it, your ups will be better than your downs. So, you've staked, if you stake a unit for those new in the betting world is just your base betting number you'll use. So let's just say a unit for simplicity stake is $10. If your unit's $10, that's all it is. 1 unit equals $10. So you've done 19.75 units, or in our case here, that's $190, almost $200. You've returned to 23.48 units, so you're up 3.73 units, which means you've profited almost $40 if you have a $10 unit, which is an 18.9% return on investment, which is great. That's a high ROI, but it's kind of cool. You even see the top-ups broken down on there. What I love about that is this tracker now shows the ROI. That's the big one that I'm looking at, is we have a place to see the return on investment as a percentage, saying if you stick to this system, you're going to make this much money by the end of the year based on how much you stake.
Yeah, exactly. I spoke about it last week, even when we sort of teased the tracker for the first time. If you're following along for a full season, I mean, there's close to 15 games every day for 6 months, right? If you're following along, there's every chance you'll be making between 500 and 1,000 bets if you want to be sticking to everyone. Other guys, I understand multis are very popular. You want the lower investment, the bigger returns, and you might just throw my 2 or 3 best ones in a multi and kind of swing for the fences. Nothing wrong with that, but from an accountability point of view and just making sure that we're all hitting at the right sort of standard, having it broken down like this is really cool. And the top-ups is a key part of that, because I won't be surprised if at the end of the season, the main bet sits around break even, and the top-up is really where you get your cream, because to hit, at a price like we did on Sunday, $12.50, that picked up 6.5 units profit from a half unit investment. That covers your next 4 to 5 main bets alone, right? So the whole thesis really, and the logic behind it is, when you're wrong, but when you're right, if you can be really right and get those value prices in the top-up range, you'll be able to make a good day great, or make a not so good day fine, and get out of it and live to fight another day.
Maybe that's the one feedback we can pass to Rolsey, is it's great that he separated the main bets and the top-ups, but if you take a look at the main bets, you're down 3 units if you round up in August so far, early days, but you're up 3.5 units on the top-ups, which means you're about even money, half a unit up in August, but like if you just look at that 2.24, that's minus 2.94, that's deceptive, but the plus 3.5 is also there. But again, the minus 2.94 is off the backs of one bad day. Like you had a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be handy if we could split, main top ups and then combined, like all bets, right? And
Yeah,
just
we should
toggle
probably add
between the
combined to
three.
this.
Because realistically, you're going to be taking them all. I think some people will stake a little bit differently as well. And look, it's going to be handy data for me. I've never broken down to this level. I keep everything on a spreadsheet already, but to break down top ups and main bets, if we get to a point where the top ups are clearly outperforming the main bets, it might be worth adjusting the staking a little bit. Typically, I go 1.5 units on a main bet, up to 2 for a max bet with confidence, and half a unit is pretty standard on top ups. But that could be a little bit of staking, tweaking as well, depending. If we're hitting more consistently at the higher odds, then maybe there needs to be a little bit of movement there.
That's a good point. We can use this as a learning exercise for everyone. But one thing I have learned is your pod picks have been pretty good this year. You had a perfect pod sweep a few days ago, and one of the last ones you did, you got 2 picks every week. So we're going to finish the show with a couple of your favorite picks. They will be on the tracker along with others. Maybe we'll have to tell Rolsey to make sure that he identifies what the pod pick is here. But give us your 2 pod picks for the next slate of games, Spoon.
Yeah, so what we've done with the podcast picks the last month or maybe a little bit longer is I've tried to find the best of the day and then a best value of the day, and the best value will usually come with a little top up. So best of the day tomorrow is probably, there's some really good pitching tomorrow, but I'm interested in this one for a few reasons. This guy screams change of scenery candidate. He's a starting pitcher. It wasn't working at all in New York, but before he went to New York, he was a really good pitcher. And I won't be surprised at all if with the witchcraft that Tampa Bay can usually use with their pitchers, and they do need a bit of help after McClanahan went down injured, I think Freddie Peralta is going to have a really strong couple of months and be a key piece for the Rays when we get to October. I've watched this one drop even in front of me as we've been doing this show. But right now, Freddie Peralta 6 or more strikeouts tomorrow on Sportsbet, $2.17. I think that's crazy. The Rockies are the second highest strikeout team in baseball. Peralta, we call him fastball Freddie. A lot of the time, strikeout stuff doesn't work as well when you go to cores because of the elevation. It doesn't do anything to a nice fastball that gets past hitters. The Rockies are swinging and missing as much as anyone. I mean, they struck out 9 times against a Rays starter today, Ian Seymour, who isn't known for being a high strikeout guy. So I think there's a heap of value tomorrow in Freddie Peralta, plus money, 6 or more strikeouts. And if you want to believe in Freddie, you can take 8 or more at $5.52. I won't talk you out of that because this is a guy that up until this year was pretty much a set and forget 6 or more strikeout guy every single outing and would hit those high single digits as well. He's got the perfect matchup. He's got the change of scenery. He's got the anxiety of the trade deadline behind him. Look for him to go and make an instant impact tomorrow for his new team.
I like this. And I mean, sometimes you do see guys get a bit of nerves as though well on their first team. So that could go the other way. But I feel like Peralta has been underperforming a bit, that it feels inevitable that he's gonna shove.
Yeah, I think it's too bad to be true. I've already had a lot of success with him this year at that 6 or so strikeout mark, even when he was a Mets starter. And he was just sort of limping there. I think if the Rays can unlock an extra gear from him, we're going to be looking at a guy who, this might be the last time we see 5.5 as a strikeout line for him if he can go out tomorrow and do his job.
All right, what do you got next for us?
So best value, I think this is maybe the most intriguing starting pitching duel as far as, both sides are really interesting quality, and they're both really good young starting pitchers. So I'm looking at Pirates and Brewers tomorrow. Jared Jones, he was one of the highest pitching prospects in baseball for a long time, spent nearly 2 years out, and he slowly started to work back. He got pulled from a perfect game a few weeks ago after 6 perfect innings. He had 9 strikeouts, and that was only a few days after the same thing happened to Yuri Perez, and we kind of had a talk on the podcast about how the perfect game might never happen again. Since then, he's had a couple of outings of 5 strikeouts, but the stuff is there and the pitch count's heading in the right direction. He's now got a base of fitness underneath him. So I really like his setup tomorrow for the Pirates. The other guy I like in the opposite side of the matchup is Logan Henderson, guy I picked last week to get 6 or more strikeouts at plus money. He came through with 7 off the back of a 9 strikeout start the week before. He's absolutely trending in the right direction. I've spoken before about how I think he's one of the most underrated young pitchers in baseball. And he's only so underrated on his own team because he's behind Jacob Mizorowski. He gets a matchup against the Pirates team that's 27th in baseball on strikeout rate. Like, this is a guy with 54 strikeouts and 44 innings. All of the signs are there for me. Fresh off a 93 pitch outing last start, which was his most thrown this year. I really like both of these guys. So 6 or more strikeouts for both guys tomorrow. You're looking at $2.90. So if we see a bit of a pitching duel that I did think was going to unfold a little bit today between Sproat and Bubba Chandler, this is a much higher quality of starting pitcher tomorrow. So 6 each at $2.90 looks really good to me. And then 7 each at $6.25 will be one of the top ups on the tracker and on social media.
Now, not all platforms, though, actually have the combined strikeouts, right?
No, this is a same game multi. I want both guys to get 6 or more.
Oh, okay.
So
you want both? Yeah, but sometimes you've done the combined where it's just like
yeah.
But that's not on all platforms. So it's the same game multi. Okay, so both.
So
that'll be on pretty much. Yeah.
Sportsbet do the combined strikeout, and so do PalmerBet because they just copy their pricing. I figured that out a couple of months ago.
Oh, do
They're
they?
the only ones who do it. Yeah, but they only posted about 3 to 4 hours before start time, which, to the point where when I'm doing tips at 7:30 a.m. here in Adelaide, they're not even out for the 11:40 games yet. So it's pretty tight. It's impossible to use those for a pod pick without kind of crystal balling the pricing a little bit. But I like both sides of this matchup just as much. I like Jared Jones as much as Logan Henderson, maybe 60-40 in Henderson's favor. But we're getting $2.90 about both guys to get 6. You will not get a 2 in front of it for 12 combined strikeouts tomorrow. It'll be $1.83. I'm pretty confident in that. So we're getting value by trusting both guys here, and especially with the top up. If they both get 7, we're looking at $6.25. I think that's really good value for our best value tomorrow.
I love it. All right, a couple picks. We'll get them up on the website. Spoon, that was a fun podcast going through the teams. More content to come. Make sure you follow us, Baseball Expats, on socials, and we'll hit you back, Friday for some more weekend tips. Spoon?
Yeah, we'll have a bit more of a sample for DD as well. Obviously, we kicked off round number 6 today, but I didn't have anyone play. I don't know if you did. Maybe you had one guy go around. It's going to start.
Jackson Chirios, and he struggled.
Yeah, it's going to start getting interesting tomorrow. I think Schlittler didn't do great today for Rolsey, so good. We thought that maybe he was just going to be out the gates again, starting strong. The listener, Team Sophia, they've got Grayson Rodriguez starting tomorrow against his old team, the Orioles. Watch out for that one. That could go one of 2 ways. So I think when we check in Friday, we're going to have a good idea of where we're at as we approach the halfway point of round 6.
It's the other part of our website, I suppose, worth mentioning is you can follow the Destiny Draft Tracker as we did. Well, have a good week of watching baseball, everybody. Everybody's teams are set the rest of the year. It should be a fun one, and we'll catch you on Friday.